Welcome in, everyone, and thank you for listening to the 174th ever episode of the Missouri Sports Podcast, brought to you by 106 Apparel and recording from the Revel Advertising Studio in beautiful Springfield, Missouri. I'm one of your hosts, Cameron Albert, alongside my good friend and fellow Mizzou fan, Kyle DeVries. How are you doing today, Kyle?
I'm doing great, Cameron. I was a little bit late to record today. I had to knit this sweater I'm wearing, and yeah.
That's a sweater.
Yeah, this
Okay.
vest. I mean, I had to. Just kidding. I didn't make it myself.
Oh,
Probably store bought like 10 years ago or something.
It looks homemade.
It might be. Somebody might have made it at some point. It's just one time a year.
Looking great.
Thanks.
Kyle, did you sleep well after 2 Mizzou losses? It is Christmas Eve.
Is it? What's today? Thursday?
Right?
Yeah, it is. You're
Christmas
right.
Eve.
Wow.
And we were up late watching
Our teams lose.
Yeah. Not great sports on TV.
Yep, we were. I slept just fine, thank you.
I had to get up at 5 o'clock and feed a baby.
Oh.
But other than that, I slept pretty well. How do you want to do this, Kyle? Do you want to just jump into this bowl game, really dissect it?
Yeah, we have a couple of news things, though, right?
Yeah, but one of the bigger news things is like chronologically post-bowl game.
Okay.
So let's just do news right after that.
Okay.
But first, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, leave us a like, comment, do that kind of stuff. You can now leave reviews or leave ratings on Spotify.
Really?
So if you could do that, that would be appreciated. And of course, you can support the podcast directly through Patreon. And you can find the details of that at patreon.com/Missouri Sports Pod. Kyle, Mizzou lost to Army 24-22. Brady Cook got the start. He looked pretty good, in my opinion, especially that first drive. He was able to kind of get the butterflies out by running for 30 yards for a touchdown on a really nice little option play. Kind of gave Army a taste of their own medicine.
Yeah, we've been running that option play all season, and it finally made sense to do so because Brady Cook kept it, and nobody touched him. Nobody was close to him.
Yeah, it was a really good read to not give the handoff, and then he kind of like froze the secondary defender with the pitch option to Chisholm, and it was perfect, perfectly executed, 30-yard touchdown.
Yeah, I thought Brady Cook. I thought he looked good last night. His first start ever. I was happy with how he played. Obviously, we know what he brings on the ground. He really is pretty fast. Looked good throwing the ball. Had a nice touchdown to Kiki Chisholm at the end of the game. He looked like a pretty complete quarterback that with room to improve for sure.
On that first drive, there was a third down play where he kind of like scrambled out of the pocket and just like pitched it ahead to Dawson Downing for a first down. That was a really good play. I thought that Missouri's offense all game long was kind of doing whatever they wanted up until like the red zone.
Yeah.
And then it was a little bit tougher. I think Army kind of has a little bit of a bend but don't break defense, and but there was huge holes to run through for the running backs and for Brady Cook, and he was getting the ball outside to his wide receivers. The first 2 passes of the game both went to Dominic Lovett, but then we didn't see him again the rest of the game. But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't really know. I don't really understand some of those personnel decisions sometimes. I don't know why we don't see Lovett ever again after the first 2 plays of the game. We had a really good first drive, and it almost felt like, I know some coaches like script their first drive. I wonder if coach does that, and then I don't know what happens after that. But the first drive, the last drive of the game, both really good, both scoring drives. And I don't really know what happened in between because it was a whole lot of nothing. I guess Missouri kicked a couple field goals, but I just don't know what happened in the 80% of the game between those 2 drives.
Yeah, it was just like it almost seemed like Missouri just had, better offensive line play than Army's defensive line, and they could just kind of out-athlete them for 80 yards of the field. But then when it really takes solid execution to score the touchdown, they're falling short. And I think that, I don't know, that's maybe a little bit of a reductive way of looking at it, but just, a new quarterback, first ever start. You don't have your All-American running back. it's going to be a little bit different. And sometimes just finishing off those drives with a touchdown is challenging when you have your very best players out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you said, the offensive line was dominant for most of the game. I mean, you could drive a truck through some of the holes that the running backs had in the game, especially early on. But, yeah, I really felt like just at least watching Missouri's offense, it feels like Missouri should have won that game. I'm not really sure how they weren't able to score enough points to beat Army. It's a little disappointing. There was a play on the second drive where Kiki Chisholm kind of caught like a lateral type pass and then, ran almost to the end zone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not so sure he didn't score, honestly. They didn't review it or anything. He kind of stretched out for it. He probably didn't score, but it was close, and Missouri couldn't score a touchdown on that drive.
Mm-hmm.
Had to settle for a field goal. Last year, I feel like one of our biggest complaints of their offense was red zone issues. That doesn't really seem to be resolved through this season either, so I don't know. Got to figure out how to punch it in.
Yeah. There was another drive. Well, you mentioned the final touchdown drive for Missouri's offense started at the 1 yard line.
Yeah.
With 2 minutes and 44 seconds left. And Brady Cook was completed 7 of 9 passes, including the touchdown pass to Kiki Chisholm. And you and I, when that happened, we were both thought, what a perfect way to win this game, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
With Brady Cook throwing a touchdown pass to Kiki Chisholm, that would just be closing the door on the Connor Bazelak era and the struggles in the passing game, and rewarding Kiki Chisholm with a touchdown to potentially win the game in his final game at Missouri. That was going to be so perfect, but there was too much time on the clock, and they didn't get the 2-point conversion, which, I mean, I think Brady Cook had a really good game for his first ever start, but that was just really unfortunate that he wasn't able to find the wide open guy there.
Something was weird about that 2-point conversion. It was like we were watching the television broadcast, obviously, and it looked like Coach was celebrating. They were fist pumping around on the sideline after they scored the touchdown, and then kind of showed something else for a while, then went back to him before the play was run, and he looked super angry all of a sudden. Anyway, I don't know if it was because maybe the team wasn't prepared to go for 2. I don't know, but something was weird. It seemed rushed going into the 2-point conversion.
Well, Coach was immediately calling for 2. There was no hesitation in his mind, so that you could very well be right that he was upset at the, whatever personnel needed to be ready weren't or something.
Yeah, and so it looked like they were maybe rushed going into the call, and then the play starts and Brady's kind of looking everywhere, and I don't know, even the throw just looked a little bit rushed. He could have taken his time, I think, and hit Downing there. But so that was
there was nobody around him.
Nobody. That was a little disappointing, and obviously that was the haunting play of the night.
Yeah, but I mean, even then, that's not you hit that pass. It's not a guaranteed win.
Sure.
I mean, Army. Let's imagine they still go kick a field goal to tie it. We don't know what happens after that. There's, scoring touchdowns instead of field goals is what would have won this game for Missouri, much more so than that 2-point conversion.
For sure, yeah. It's hard to pin it on one play. Let's analyze maybe the coaching decisions at the end of the game there. Missouri scored too fast. I think let's see. I don't have it in front of me of what that exact progression was, but
I do.
Oh, great!
What do you want to know about it?
Just why did they? Do you think they could have taken more time off the clock there? What could they have done differently?
It's hard to say, honestly. They got the ball with 2 minutes and 44 seconds left. Everything was a first down or out of bounds.
Yeah.
The first, there was 3 completed passes for first downs in a row, and then Elijah Young ran out of bounds, and then pass complete to Barrett Bannister out of bounds. All of those were stopping the clock. So basically, they got all the way to the Army 17-yard line with a minute and a half still left on the clock.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of you can't. It's just really hard because you can't try to stay in bounds.
Right.
But they could have, on those first down plays, let more of the clock run down.
I think
with the play clock.
I think that's what they have to do. I think I don't know. And they didn't know they were going to miss the 2-point conversion, obviously, but I just definitely think you have to run the clock down there more. You even if you don't score, I think even if the game just ends right there, I think that's what you have to do. You have to try and control the clock.
Yeah.
And you don't give Army a chance to come back and score, and only needing a field goal.
Yeah, as I'm looking at it and listening to you, I think before we started talking about this just now, I would have said, I'm more worried about scoring the touchdown. But I think you're exactly right. I mean, yeah, you just can't give Army the opportunity to get the ball back and do anything with it.
Yeah. And, I mean, they're not an explosive offense. So, ideally, it's going to be harder for them than a normal team to get into field goal range, but they were able to do it. They had enough time. If they had half the amount of time, I don't think they could have done it.
Oh, absolutely. And, yeah, so Army got the ball back with 1:11 left, and it was 1st and goal for Missouri at the Army 6 with 1:20. But they only, they ran 2 plays and scored a touchdown.
Yeah.
So that at that point, that's kind of what I was thinking of before we started talking about it, was like, well, when you've got the ball goal to go, it's hard to waste time trying to score a touchdown.
Yeah.
It's earlier in the possession, once they got into the red zone,
then
where
they could have slowed it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
One other coaching thing, 4th down play in the 4th quarter, I believe. It's when they brought Micah Wilson in and tried to catch him off guard, catch him off sides, I mean. Again, retrospect, hindsight's 20/20, all that stuff. They elect to not run a play with Micah Wilson. I mean, they needed not even a yard.
Yeah.
It was like a half a yard maybe. They call timeout, and then they run it with Dawson Downing and don't get it.
Right.
That was a pretty frustrating sequence. What do you think? I mean, do you think they should have done anything differently there?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to nitpick the play call afterwards, but I thought once they came back from the timeout, that's not the play to run. If you're going to just hand it to Downing, then just go with like a super heavy package and just try to ram it up the middle for a yard.
I agree.
Otherwise, do anything. If you're going to not go with the most conventional method of just like lining it up in a heavy formation and just trying to get that 1 yard, then just go completely away from that. Run a QB sneak, run a read option, roll Cook out to where he can run for it or throw to an underneath receiver. Any of those things would have been better than handing the ball off to Downing
on like a slow developing run play.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, kind of more to the outside.
Yeah, it was brutal there, just to not run the play, call a timeout, lose a timeout, and then still not get it. It was frustrating.
Yeah. But those are, I mean, again, those are all just things that you don't even have to worry about if they turn a couple of those field goals into touchdowns.
Yep. I feel like Army didn't do anything crazy offensively. They didn't really have any big plays that broke off. It felt like they just kind of ate away at Missouri, kind of nickel and dimed us a little bit.
Yeah, especially in the running game. I was fully expecting there to be 1 or 2 plays where Army where the defense just kind of broke down a little bit, missed an assignment, and Army was off to the races. But the biggest breakdown came when like Army's quarterback got hurt, so they brought in a guy for 1 play, and he threw a touchdown pass on 4th down, and that was pretty brutal. And that was the most explosive play I think all game for Army, so that was pretty disappointing. I
don't know. Missouri was without a lot of starters, especially on defense.
A
lot of injuries before, like coming into the game, and then a lot of injuries in the game. Like Sean Robinson, Jalen Carlisle. I think Robinson returned, but Jelani Williams, Allie Green, all those guys got hurt in the game, and then obviously we were without Martez Manuel,
Caleb Evans.
I think Caleb Evans, he was sitting out, right? And then Martez was hurt. So I mean, we were without 7 or 8 starters at one point in the game. It was a little rough. I'd love to play Army again at full strength, and with Tyler Beatty, I think it's probably not even that close of a game, to be honest.
Right.
But that's bowl season for you. That's how it goes.
Yeah, and I mean, when you're Missouri and you're rebuilding and you are 6-6 and kind of get a bottom of the barrel opportunity with a bowl game, then you're going to see more players sitting out. You're going to see coaches encouraging their star running back to not play.
Yeah.
You're going to see it just kind of not be as crucial to the program as if, Missouri had a 10-win season and they were, whatever.
Yeah, Missouri had a 6-win bowl game, and they treated it as such, and that's fine. On Tyler Beatty, obviously, as a fan, I would have loved to see Tyler Beatty play. I would have loved to win the game. That's what I look for, and as a fan, I want to win every game we play.
Yeah.
Of course, I completely understand the situation. I completely understand and probably agree with their decision to have him sit out. It's a bowl game, which is a lot of times kind of an opportunity to see what we have for the future. And sometimes
they basically only did that with Brady Cook, though.
I know, and I'll get to that, I guess, in a second.
Okay.
But I think that this point might be a little, easy to misunderstand me potentially. But I sometimes felt like in the season, Tyler Beatty, I'm his biggest fan. He's amazing, but I almost felt like at times in the season we kind of leaned on him almost too much at times, and it almost handicapped us because instead of maybe playing a more aggressive game, we just handed it off to Tyler Beatty 40 times in a game. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that worked out, and he would, take advantage of the defense over time in a game. But
it didn't lead to a very well-rounded offense.
No, and yeah, it's predictable. Yep. And so I was actually a little bit excited to see Missouri, what they were going to do without Tyler Beatty. Who are they going to turn to? And maybe we might see a little more aggressive play calling. Mm-hmm. But and to your point, Dawson Downing got the start, which is fine. He's a senior. It's kind of cool to see a senior start in his last game, but
he did fine. 5 yards per carry on 14 attempts. Elijah Young also had 13 carries. He was at 5.8 yards per attempt. Had a nice 21-yard gain at one point.
I definitely would have liked to see Elijah Young get the ball more. Maybe some BJ Harris too.
Yeah.
Like you said, Dawson Downing, he played good. I think a lot of that was the offensive line completely destroying Army's defensive line. But Elijah Young looked really good when he was in there. He's really fast, and I thought that he probably could have broken off some big plays if he had more opportunities. Yeah,
and of course, Dawson Downing had the fumble that derailed a drive, and obviously points on that drive is probably a win for Missouri. But overall, I thought Missouri was pretty poised. They weren't really making too many terrible mistakes. They had penalties under control. That was the only turnover on the game. Mm-hmm. It was a really bad turnover, but that happens sometimes.
Yep.
So I think there was just it's almost like there was 5 different ways Missouri could have improved in this game to win it, mm-hmm. and they just couldn't do any of them.
Yeah.
And that's when you're that close and there's so many just tiny little deficiencies, it's makes for a frustrating outcome. But
yeah. And I mean, we even had the chance to win it at the end. I mean, I was not convinced Army's kicker was going to make that kick. He's no Harrison Mevis.
That's true.
And
he had already missed one earlier.
Yeah, he had some difficulties this year, it sounded like, and was not super reliable.
1 of 4 from 40 plus.
Yeah.
And his career long is 41.
And it was a 41-yarder, I think, to win the game. Yeah, he did. So that's just how it goes. There's been some... Were you going to say something?
No.
There's been... I've seen some chatter from the fan base about wanting Coach Drinkwitz to hire an offensive coordinator. What do you think about that?
Probably wouldn't hurt. I mean, I would like it to be... obviously, we know the Chiefs, are a good example of Andy Reid,
mm-hmm.
being very much in control of how the offense operates and the play calling and everything, but he still delegates some responsibilities to an offensive coordinator,
mm-hmm.
and something like that makes a ton of sense.
Right. To kind of maybe you're not calling every play, but those two people are working together throughout the week to kind of develop a game plan. It takes more responsibility in game off of coach, because we've seen some weird decisions,
mm-hmm.
and I don't know if I would say bonehead, but just some interesting decisions that maybe I don't fully agree with, and maybe if he has somebody to kind of sound off to a little bit, they can come to some better decision making potentially. There's just a lot to manage in the middle of the game.
I think it's too early to say that Drinkwitz should not be calling the plays. I don't think really the struggles with the offense for the majority of the season or with the play calling. I think he knows his players a lot better than we do and what is going to work on the field. He's doing the scouting on the defense and all that kind of stuff. So it's hard for me to question. It's easy to question like individual play calls, like the fourth down situation and stuff like that. But an overall like offensive scheme and how they go about it, it seems like he's doing fine, honestly.
Yeah.
I think the personnel deficiencies have been greater than the play calling issues.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I don't think he's going to hire an OC.
No, I wouldn't guess.
I can understand an argument for one, but I don't think it's going to happen.
I would see it more of like if he had like a long-time assistant that had been with him multiple spots. It almost seems like for a coach that is that involved in the play calling, he would need to have some kind of like Padawan, if you will, who he is like bringing up along with him that is like fully ingrained in the offensive system, and he feels comfortable passing on.
I think you're right.
That responsibility too. But I like you said, I don't see that coming anytime soon. I thought Missouri's defense actually held up really well considering the injuries and stuff. Army ran the ball 55 times for 211 yards, 3.8 yards per attempt. So
which is significantly under their season average. I think it's like 100 yards less than their season average.
Yeah, and they of course they showed that stat where like Army like the second most rushing yards per game, and Missouri like 124th in rushing defense.
I do think it's a little misleading, but it is. I mean, it's true though.
That is the team's statistics.
There are nuances though to those numbers, but when you look at those numbers, you're like, wow, Army's going to destroy.
And in October, if this game was played, then probably Army runs for 500 yards
potentially.
But I think Missouri's front line, the offensive and defensive line, both kind of showed in this game that the players are just a little bit different when you go up the ranks into the different conferences and stuff. And I think Army has not played teams with the size up front that Mizzou has very often this year. And I think it showed in this one.
Yeah, I think I read Devin Nicholson was playing cornerback at one point. Like, we were thin. Yeah, we were really thin.
Tyler Hibbler was in the game, who has like hardly seen the field.
I don't think he has
all season.
Yeah. Yep, it was that kind of game.
They still had plenty of opportunities to win it, though.
Yep, I think they should have.
Yeah, for sure. And they covered the spread. Spread was 6.5. I saw 6 point spread.
Was that the finals spread?
I don't know. I saw 6.5 at one point. I saw 6 another place. So that was honestly borderline insulting to Missouri, especially looking at the outcome.
I really think that it was exactly that stat you brought up. Yeah. Army is amazing at running the ball. It's all they do, and Missouri's terrible at stopping it. And obviously, like I said, there's nuances to that. They improved tremendously throughout the season. They were not the 124th best run defense by the time they played that game, but they were so bad at the beginning of the year that they dug themselves in a hole that was impossible to get out of. So they just kind of retained that terrible statistic all year.
They could have been like remarkably good in the second half of the season and
still like not climb the rankings at all.
Exactly. So unfortunately, Missouri did not win this bowl game, just like they haven't won the last few. They have not won a bowl game since the 2014 Citrus Bowl.
It was actually the first day of 2015, but the 2014 season.
Sure. Matty Mock ran a guy over, scored a rushing touchdown that feels like
an eternity ago.
Yes.
Different lifetime almost.
But that was the last time they won a bowl game.
Hey, well, next time Missouri plays football, Luther Burden's going to be playing for him.
That's a plus.
And in the spring game, too.
Yeah. Transition, who's not going to be playing in the spring game, and that is Connor Bazelak. He has almost immediately announced that he has entered the transfer portal. He will not be returning to Missouri. This is not all that surprising.
After what happened last night, not surprising.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been surprised even if he played last night, honestly. Yeah. But, with him not playing in the bowl game and obviously Sam Horn, highly touted recruit coming in, they're giving Brady Cook a look in this game. He looked really good. yeah, it makes sense for him to move on and find another place to be a starting quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that mean now for the quarterback room? I've seen a lot of talk about we got to desperately bring in a transfer quarterback. Some people think Sam Horn's going to step in and be the starter day one. A lot of people are probably going to be on the Brady Cook hype train after this game. Mm-hmm. So where do you fall?
Honestly, I think we don't add a transfer quarterback.
Is that a prediction or what you would prefer?
I think that's probably what I would prefer at this point. Because, unless there's just some guy that's yet to announce and he somehow wants to come here. There was Spencer Rattler, Adrian Martinez. There were some pretty big names that maybe I would have been interested in. Bo Nix. Mm-hmm. There were some guys that I thought were maybe worth giving a look to as kind of a one-year guy to come in and be the best possible player we have on the roster to lead the team for 1 year, and then we move on. All those three guys have gone somewhere. Rattler went to South Carolina. Adrian Martinez is at Kansas State, who will play next year. And
Bo Nix went to Oregon. So those options are gone. If we do add a transfer quarterback, I kind of feel like the only way we do that is if it's kind of just for depth. Mm-hmm. And I don't really think that there's like a 1 year surefire guy, like a Kelly Bryant situation where a guy comes in for 1 year and is for sure the starter. I don't see that happening personally, and I don't know that I want it to, because I think it might just kind of mess up the chemistry maybe in the room. And you're dealing with human beings here that are all counting on having their shot to play, and you've got Tyler Macon and Brady Cook and Sam Horn all thinking that they're going to have a shot to win the job next year. I just don't know that you bring in a fourth guy to vie for that position. I agree with you. I think unless there was a guy that was like, okay, we're all in with this guy as the starter, that's not a quarterback competition, we're bringing this guy in to start, which we've kind of established it doesn't seem like that's out there anymore. Bringing in somebody else to battle it out for the quarterback spot just says that you don't like what you have. Yep. And you're just basically back in the same scenario as if Bazelak had stayed, mm-hmm. where it's 100%. This like borderline 3-man, maybe 4-man quarterback competition with only players that haven't done great or have not played at all, basically.
Yep. I think not adding a big name is a vote of confidence to the guys you have in the room. And I think that's what's going to happen. Having 3 quarterbacks on the roster, I think you might want to have a fourth guy just for emergency situations, but I don't think it's going to be some big name guy. No.
And they kind of always have, walk-ons or
that's true.
Depth I think pieces that never see the field but are there just in case.
A couple walk-on, like Samsel, I think is his name. I mm-hmm. think they've got a couple guys that are emergency.
Drew Lock's cousin.
Yeah, emergency guys. So, yeah, I just don't see them adding another quarterback at this point.
No, that's fine with me. Okay, so then I'm putting you on the spot. This is way too early to even be speculating on this. Who's starting game 1 next year?
I'm going to say Brady Cook does. And the only reason I say that, and which is crazy because I think he may have the lowest ceiling of the 3 guys as far as potential. Mm-hmm. Like how could, in the best case scenario, if all these guys reach their highest potential, I think he is the lowest potential of the 3. But I still think that he's the safest, most polished option at this point, and probably still will be, 7-8 months from now. But, Sam Horn, obviously probably the highest ceiling of the 3, but he's getting to campus 2 months before the season starts. And that is a ton of responsibility for a true freshman quarterback that's been on campus for 2 months. Yeah. Maybe he starts, but I don't think that he will know the playbook to a level that coach will be happy with at that point. And that's fine. I wouldn't expect, hardly anybody does that.
Right.
And
if he was getting on to campus in January, that'd be a little bit different story. But
I think that's true.
And now Brady Cook conceivably will have a full off season to, be potentially the starter mm-hmm. and work with the first team and really take control. Yeah. So I think that'd be fine with me.
Yeah, I think Brady Cook is the most complete package at the point, with a guy that's a threat on the ground. He's very fast. He showed that last night. He showed that he has the potential to sling it around a little bit.
Yeah.
Hit his receivers in stride, make contested catches, and stay cool in the pocket. Make good decisions. Even at the end of the game, when the game was on the line, he led them all the way down the field for Absolutely. A 99-yard score. So I think he's the most complete player at this point.
Yeah, 27 of 34 passing for 238 yards is a better game at quarterback than we've seen since the Kentucky game. I'm probably forgetting something, but
238 yards when they could get almost anything they wanted on the ground is pretty good.
7 yards per attempt, which is, we were seeing just terribly low yards per attempt numbers with Bazelak.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, that kind of seemed like, is this a Bazelak thing? Is this a Coach Drinkwitz thing? And I think after watching the game last night, I feel like it may have just been a Bazelak thing because there were definitely some lateral passes that look ingrained into the play calling, but Brady Cook was definitely not afraid to throw to the middle of the field, and he was just hitting guys wide open in the middle of the field at times towards the end of the game and stuff. So he was throwing it all over.
Yeah, works for me. Anything else about this bowl game or any of the players from this year's team? Anything else on that?
Not right now, I guess. With the way the basketball team is looking, I think we'll have plenty of time to share any football thoughts we have this offseason.
That's true. So then another news item from the past week is Missouri got a commitment from an in-state player for the class of 2023.
Yeah, Missouri landed Ja'Kai Lang last Friday, I think. And we had a good feeling that he was going to be a part of Missouri's class going into it. But it's still good to see him put on the Missouri hat. He's a 6'3", 240-pound edge rusher from Troy, Missouri, so an in-state guy. He did play a little bit of nose tackle as well, but he was first-team All-State his junior season. I think he's ranked 10th on both Rivals and 24/7's rankings for in-state.
Correct.
I think he probably could be a little higher than that. But he said a couple of things in different interviews. He said he trains with Marquise Graciel, and kind of seeing him and Luther Burden go to Missouri was pretty big for him. And I mean, that's what you like to hear is the domino effect of those big players going to Missouri helps us down the road, and you can kind of see how that's helping with a very important 2023 class. Another thing that he said in an interview with 24/7, which I think is one of my favorite things I've heard a recruit say in a really long time, he just said, "I heard the best players in Missouri play for Missouri," and you can't get much better than that. That's what we've been trying to build for so long: is keep the in-state guys here and make it mean something to play for the home state. And it looks like for some guys that might be catching on a little bit.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a tangent, but you can't undersell how the reality of how many good players come out of the state of Missouri every year. And yeah, just the simple reality that if those players if Missouri was able to get, 3 of the top 5 players in the state every year and still grab, an East St. Louis guy from time to time, a Kansas City, Kansas guy from time to time, then we would be right there at the top of college football, maybe not every single year, but that would be so huge in establishing Missouri as an actual contender in the SEC. So I love that. That's the communication with the recruits, and there's 4 guys at the top of the list in the state of Missouri for 2023 that are not committed yet, but seem to be leaning to programs that are not Missouri. So the staff has some work to do with 2023 still, but there's opportunity to have another awesome class there. And we're starting it off right with 2 in-state recruits committing. All right. Is that all for football, you think?
I'm ready to move on.
Missouri won a basketball game. If you can remember, they played Utah not too long ago. They beat Utah at home 83-75. Kobe Brown with an excellent game, 27 points. He was your KenPom MVP. Got to the free throw line a ton, 11 of 13 from the stripe. Kyle, I think I already told you my answer to this question, so I'm going to ask you, is the Utah game that we just watched, is that this team's ceiling? Is that the best we can expect them to play for a whole game?
It's very possible. Missouri still didn't shoot very well from three. They're not a good shooting team. Obviously, we know that at this point.
4 of 21.
They could definitely shoot. I think they could shoot better than that, but realistically, I mean, they could shoot better than that. But I'm not sure that Kobe Brown's going to have the game he has every game. So, I guess that's probably the best Missouri's going to look all year.
So the bad news is Utah was without their best player, who is a big man and probably would have limited Kobe Brown to some extent. He's probably not going for 27 if Utah's big guy's there. Yeah. And this is a game that Utah's offense did okay, even without their best player. And, they scored 75 points, and I think this would have been, I don't know.
They shot well from three.
Yeah, they did, for sure. So maybe that gets balanced out a little bit, but win is a win. We'll take it.
I mean, it was great to see Missouri take advantage of a disadvantage that the other team had. I mean, it felt kind of last minute that at least maybe I found out last minute, but they adjusted and they fed Kobe Brown, and he had 27 points. So it was good to see them, take advantage of a situation like that. And, sometimes you just wonder, is there just a struggle to watch on offense? And you just wonder sometimes, are they doing their best to exploit mismatches? But they definitely did in that game. And, it almost felt like I think the TV announcers said, I think it was Tom Hart and Sundvold. And they almost said, basically, Utah's pretty small outside of the big guy that they didn't have. And it almost looked like Missouri was playing really well because it almost felt like a mid-major opponent because they were so undersized. And that makes sense. I mean, Missouri, we'll talk about Illinois in a second, but, I mean, they were destroyed by Kofi Coburn, who's huge.
Yeah, before we get to that, Amari Davis, nice bounce-back game for him against Utah. I think he was held scoreless against Kansas, but bounced back with 17 points against Utah. Still, though, 4 of 21 from three. That's 19%.
Yeah.
Missouri is very close to dead last in all of college basketball in three-point shooting percentage. It's not good. They're able to get it done in the paint sometimes, but I guess we'll just move on to Illinois because not a whole lot went right in this one. Missouri lost to Illinois 88-63. Illinois went on two different runs in this game. One 23-4 and another one 21-1. That's hard to combat. Missouri had a run of their own, 11-0 at one point in the first half to kind of get the deficit a little bit more manageable. But then right at the end of the first half into the beginning of the second half was that 21-1 run. And, of course, we're watching the football game at the same time. So we've got one. I'm at Kyle's house. We're watching one on the TV, one on the computer. And it's hard. I didn't catch every single play of every game perfectly. But it was okay, we're paying attention to the basketball game now. Okay, Missouri's trying to get back in this. They went on a little run, scoring the ball okay. And then something happened and Illinois it was Javon Pickett had a breakaway. He was going to go up and slam it, do his
breakaway steal.
Yeah, rivalry game thing. And he got fouled from behind and it was on the floor.
And they took a TV timeout, I think.
Yeah, didn't even get free throws. And then I think Missouri turned the ball over on their next possession.
It just stalled everything.
And there was a momentum there and just completely vanished. And Illinois, that's when they sparked that 21-1 run.
It's so weird watching them. It's everyone, they look fine sometimes, and they were kind of hanging tough with them there for a little bit in the first half, and then they just all of the sudden just run out of it.
Yeah,
it's like this. They got some kind of juice, and when that juice is gone, it's gone, and there's nothing there,
right.
And they can't score for minutes at a time, and
we've seen that's not. We saw that a bit last year.
Yeah, that's college basketball. That happens sometimes.
Yeah, there's runs, but
it's bad.
In years past, I feel like Missouri's defense, it's okay, if they can hold a team to a 12-0 run, 12-1 run, 18-4 run, those are still not great, but at least the team isn't, just piling on 20 points in 4 minutes of game time.
Right. Yeah, the defense is bad too, so they let the runs happen, and their offense is bad, so they can't recover either. So
they just get buried, and it's just like so. I don't remember so many games just so clearly being over.
Oh yeah.
You know, like that. The same thing happened in the Kansas game. You know, they got it down to single digit deficit, and then there was a run, and it's over. It's long gone. Boogie Coleman, 16 points on 9 shots. He had a pretty good game offensively. Kobe had 13. He's probably your best bet to score in double figures, like pretty much every single game.
Yeah, he's got a high floor.
And the biggest surprise in the last few games has been Trevon Brazil.
Yeah.
In this one, he had 11 points, 6 blocks. He blocked Kofi Coburn a few times.
Yeah.
And 5 rebounds. And for a freshman who, we've kind of talked about this before.
Played 3 games.
A freshman who hasn't played much and was considered a project.
Yep.
At least from the fan base. Konzo, to his credit, is acting like he was planned to be a part of the rotation from day one, and the medical issues were keeping him out. But he looks really good. I think I'll have to look at the record books, but if he does anything close to this, he'll be setting a Mizzou freshman record for blocks, I would say.
Yeah, he has a very bright future. And Missouri has got some pieces, but we talked about it a little bit last night, and it was almost the Kevin Purrier situation early on in his career. He was a good player, but just these players should not be depended upon to score double digits every night to be able to win. And Kobe Brown's a great player, but ideally he's not your best player.
Right.
And I don't know. It's just
and Brazil ideally is not starting.
There's a talent deficiency issue, and it's glaring.
Yeah. Kofi Coburn had 25 points and 14 rebounds. Illinois shot 63% from 2 and 48% from 3. There were stretches where they just made everything. Yeah. And they were even without Corbello, arguably their best player.
Yeah.
At least he's probably their player with the most NBA potential.
Yeah, after a while, whenever the other team just makes everything, you start to think, okay, it's not a luck thing anymore. I think we just have terrible defense.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Coburn was just a monster.
Yeah.
He looked more athletic than I thought he was capable of in this game.
He was playing. It looked like he was playing high schoolers. Basically, was.
Yeah.
Some of our players are.
Yeah. Pretty young.
That young.
Yeah. I mean, I thought Brazil was actually like the best defender on him. Probably he was at least athletic enough to meet him at the rim.
Yeah.
And quick enough to stay in front of them. Everybody else, I don't know.
Should Jordan Wilmore play a single minute the rest of the season?
No, I mean, probably not. I say give all the minutes to Brazil at the 5. He can stretch the floor a little bit. I don't think he made a 3 in this one, but
yeah, I mean, Kobe Brown struggled a little bit on Coburn, but I mean, what do you do? He got called for some cheap fouls too, just doing his best when Coburn was initiating contact and stuff. There's just nothing you can do at some point.
So Mizzou falls to 6-6 on the season. They are 155 in KenPom. That is squarely Kim Anderson territory for those that didn't know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, even Kim Anderson would make the bragging rights games close sometimes, but obviously Illinois is probably better now than they were in that stretch. But
yeah, Missouri won 3 in a row, though, before this one. So Illinois was due, I think. And they're good this year. Yeah. Illinois is very good. Missouri
might have stole one last year a little bit, getting to play at home.
Yeah, that's true.
Illinois was really good last year.
Brad Underwood definitely seems to think so.
Yeah.
Missouri's offense ranked 192, defense 130, so not getting better there. This is definitely a 200 level offense. That'll happen very quickly.
I think they might be sub 200 in both categories, to be honest.
Surely their defense won't get that bad, but I don't know. The SEC is pretty good, and we're starting SEC play right away. I mentioned, obviously, we know their 3-point shooting struggles, but literally their offense, Missouri's offense is 355th out of 358 in 3-point field goal percentage.
That surprises nobody.
And Missouri's defense, 331st in 3-point field goal percentage allowed. So,
not a good combo. Just take out the 3-point line.
honestly, Missouri's still shooting too many threes. Like, there's no way we should be shooting this many
25 threes in the game. Yeah.
Missouri does have the 21st best defensive field free throw percentage allowed. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Something that's completely has nothing to do with their play whatsoever.
Yeah. One of the most alarming things possibly in these like advanced metrics is the Missouri's offense non-steal turnover percentage.
In other words, giving the ball away.
Yeah. Traveling violations, stepping out of bounds, throwing the ball away. 332nd. Not very good.
Yikes.
The good news is, just kidding, it's terrible news. They play Kentucky next Wednesday. Kentucky is the 11th best team in the country, according to KenPom. 11th on offense, 30th on defense. And they have a big man in Oscar Tshiebwe, who is in the conversation for Player of the Year, like National College Player of the Year. He's very, very good. He transferred to Kentucky from West Virginia, and he is shooting 65% from the field. He's a traditional big man. He is the best rebounding player in all of college basketball. Just eats up rebounds. Offensive glass, defensive glass, doesn't matter. He gets rebounds. He dunks everything. He finishes at the rim at an elite level, and he's going to destroy Missouri in a very similar way that Kofi Coburn did. And there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, and he's got a great guard in Severe Wheeler that can feed him too.
Yeah, Kentucky just decided, our high school recruiting has been a little bit hit or miss lately, so we're just going to go take the best player from another SEC team.
Yeah.
And we're going to have point guard Severe Wheeler, one of the best distributing point guards in the country. Not a huge scoring threat, but he can still do it. He's a very good free throw shooter, but one of the best assist guys in the country. Plays solid defense. He's scrappy.
He destroyed Missouri last year when he played for Georgia.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting kind of seeing their recruiting philosophy change a little bit over the years, and it kind of came to it kind of fell apart last year, especially for Kentucky, whenever they just were going all, 5-star freshmen, and they struggled to shoot, and I think they had some leadership issues. They just weren't very good last year, but it's a shame they figured out this other outlet for finding good players, experienced players that have proven themselves at college level.
Yeah.
Just taking the best players of a lower level, it works out really, really well.
Yeah, they start 3 juniors, a senior, and a freshman. Yeah. And their freshman, Ty Washington, he's just a solid combo guard. Like, he does not look like a freshman. He distributes the ball some from the 2 spot. Pretty good 3-point shooter. He's just solid. He's just a solid shooting guard. And then they've got another wing player, Kellen Grady, who all he does is make threes. He just makes 3-pointers, shooting 48% from 3. Plays a ton of minutes. He doesn't really do anything else. He is one of the better offensive players in the country just because, like, efficiency rating wise, because he just makes 3-pointers.
Yeah. You can't shut them all down.
No.
Somebody's always going to be open.
I do think it's interesting, though, that Kentucky, John Calipari is like a pretty like forward-thinking college basketball coach. He's always ready to do whatever the new thing is to have a good roster. And he has had he's gone in on like positionless basketball, switch everything, have a bunch of forwards that can do a little bit of everything to different degrees of success. And this year he just kind of pivoted into a very traditional facilitating point guard, a big man who just cleans the glass and finishes at the rim, and surround those two with good shooters, and you've got a really good team. They play really good team defense as well. So it's coming together for Calipari this year. And it's just interesting to see. I think that's the mark of a really good coach is his adaptability. Obviously, it helps you're getting any way you go about it, you're getting really talented players. Yeah,
but having the ability to adapt and be good with different styles, I think that it's, like you said, the mark of a good coach. And, I mean, I personally kind of envy that a little bit. Right now we've been trying to go the positionless route for a couple of years, and I think we finally have the personnel that you might say, oh, this is a positionless roster, and we are horrible.
Yeah.
And I kind of almost covet having a point guard that's distributing and, a more traditional big, and that isn't Jordan Wilmore.
Yeah.
And
it seems like that's the only place where the Missouri staff is like, okay, we'll go traditional with a big man. We really liked having Tillman, and we'll bring in, another 7-footer, but obviously not working out. Missouri has been kind of locked into this point forward, 4-man distributing the ball from the top of the key scheme all of Conzo Martin's time at Missouri.
Yeah. It might be a Cornell man thing.
Regardless of who that player is, It was supposed to be Michael Porter Jr. It ended up being Kevin Puryear. It was supposed to be Jonte Porter. It ended up being Kevin Puryear.
Yeah.
Now it's Kobe Brown and a few other forwards.
Yeah. We've had some ugly games this year. This being at Rupp might take the cake as the worst game we play all year.
Yeah,
considering their personnel on the road.
Yeah.
The
margin of defeat for Missouri, if you add Kansas, Illinois,
UMKC,
yeah, Kansas, Illinois, and this Kentucky game,
yeah,
that's going to be
combined like 300 points.
You'd be hard pressed to find another 3-game stretch.
Yeah,
with worse margin of defeat for Missouri.
Yeah.
On that note,
well, anyway, see you guys next week.
Merry Christmas, everyone. I feel like you're supposed to do some kind of like Christmas themed segment at Christmas time. So I'm gonna.
Who told you that?
Watching media.
Podcast gods.
Yeah, watching sports media for 20 years of my life has taught me that you're supposed to incorporate the holidays somehow. But we're gonna gift the Missouri football team with some impact transfers.
There you go.
Especially on the defensive side of the ball. That'd be a nice gift for them. We're going to gift the Missouri basketball team
$6 million.
$6 million.
For whatever you want to use it for.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. If it's earmarked for a buyout, then even better. But I think that's all for this week.
I think that's it.
Special thank you to our Patreon supporters at the $10 level and above: Britt Treese, Brian Smith, Ryan Lee, Tristan, Ben Smith, Parker, Daddy JD, Luis Hernandez, and Tim Keynes.
Thank you, gentlemen. You can find this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We're on Twitter at Mizzou Sports Pod, and you can email us at MissouriSportsPod@gmail.com.
You can find our t-shirts and stickers on our online shop, MissouriSportsPod.BigCartel.com.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. We will see you next week.